Hey folks, today's episode is brought to you in part by Boulevard Carroll Entertainment Group. From productions, rehearsals, installations with an expert staff and state-of-the-art equipment. No matter the size of your production, from rehearsal to curtain, they've got you covered.
What's happening, roadies? This is Greg Howard.
This is Paul Marcarelli.
What's happening, roadies? This is Keith Knobler, and you're listening to Roadie Free Radio.
What's up, roadies? My name is Larry Milburn, and this is Roadie Free Radio, your VIP pass to meet and greet the stars behind the scenes of the music and film business. All right, what's happening, roadies? How are we doing? Welcome back to yet another episode of Roadie Free Radio. This is your host, Larry Milburn. I am coming at you from a barn in Northwest Connecticut, damn it. And guess what? This is our 165th episode of the podcast. I want to thank you guys for stopping by, taking the time to listen to this guy shoot off his mouth for the next 10 or 12 minutes and then launch into another fantastic interview. My guest celebrating our 165th episode is Mr. Keith Knobler, monitor engineer extraordinaire and head audio dude at the Bill Graham Civic Auditorium in San Francisco, California. How are you guys doing? We're a few weeks in now. Are we a month into this ridiculousness, this anxiety provoking stuff? I hope you're okay, man. I really, really do. It's crazy. Before we jump into the crazy, you know I got to give some happy birthday shout outs. So here we go. Graham Mellor, who's actually going to be coming up on the show quite soon. Stand by. Happy birthday to you, sir. Byron Isaacs, you bass playing fool. Happy birthday to you. And Piper Payne, keeping the mastering going. Happy birthday to all of you guys. And anybody I missed out there, happy birthday. Also got to give a shout out. Guys, it is crazy. 165 episodes in. I still am in awe of the community that we have built on Roadie Free Radio, the love that you bring. But we have a new listener I got to give a shout out to right now who just sent me an email to let me know he stumbled onto the show, how much he's been enjoying the show, and some of the guests, had some suggestions for other guests. I've got to write him back. By the time he hears this, hopefully I will have written him back. But we've got, I hope I get this all right now. I hope I get this right. Tendai Madewu. Tendai Madewu. That's it, Madewu. Tendai Madewu from Harare, Zimbabwe, Africa, wrote me an email to say, hey man, love what you're doing. Super cool all the way across the globe. Thank you, dude. So listen, I don't know where you guys were, okay, Thursday night, 8:30 p.m. this past week, but guess what? Roadie Free Radio did its first live stream, and when I tell you we had a packed house, we had 10 people watching. 10 people popped onto the live stream. It was awesome. It was not about the numbers. It was about sort of testing the theory, the concept of doing a live stream. And we had a great time. A lot of good people stopped by, brought up some great questions. We talked about, obviously, the current state of affairs with the old COVID-19 coronavirus baloney maroni and what's going on with that, how that is affecting everybody right now. It's not baloney. I'm just trying to make a little bit light of it, for God's sakes, because it's just, it's just craziness. Anyway, we had some good stuff. We had some good discourse going on, and I ran through some microphones, a bunch of mics that I've been using on the show over the years, as well as some books that I find pertinent, some stuff I've talked about on the show, but I thought I'd bring them up on the live stream as well. And what else? I busted out a couple guitars, my Gibson, my homemade Fender and Fender Telecaster, and played some tunes. It was fun. It was a good hang. It was my first ever live stream. So I didn't promote it too much, just did it. But I have to tell you, for those folks that did stop by to watch, I want you to know something. In the few short days since that live stream, I have ditched the iPad. I have figured out how to hook up my Canon M50 mirrorless camera with a Sigma 16mm lens on this bad boy. switch it up a little bit, and it's looking nice. It's looking real nice. So the next time I go live, and there will be a next time, it could be this week. I'm not sure. I haven't decided yet. I've got some things going on I'm going to tell you about, but things are looking good. So if it does, you'll know. You guys will all be the first to know, and I hope you come by and stop by and bring me your questions. Hang with me, man. It was a good time. One of the things I did talk about that I wanted to let you guys know about on today was that I let people know during the live stream was that I've been tapped by this local community up where we live here in Litchfield County to do a documentary on the coronavirus, on the effects of the coronavirus on our local farming community. I have a lot of friends that are farmers up here, organic farmers and whatnot, and they have stepped up in such an incredible way to provide food, open up their CSAs early, get food going to people, and it's just been an amazing thing. But of course, they are under intense pressure as well. So this group is a group that hired me to do a film for them 2 years ago. Clearly, they were happy with that, thankfully. And we started talking about the idea for one to do this year, and we settled on doing a documentary that basically is like unfolding in real time. I got to start shooting like today, and it should be coming out in July-ish, maybe, hopefully end of July. And then I get to take it to festivals and do a whole thing. So, we're looking at like a 10 to 25 minute little mini documentary about coronavirus and the local farming community. I'm very excited. This is like my next film. I'm super psyched, super pumped about it. So stay tuned. I'm sure I'll be sharing some stuff with that. Anyway, thanks again to everybody who tuned in for the live stream. It was really cool. We're going to do it again. And guys and gals, let me tell you something. Jump on the live stream thing. Whether you want to play some music, you want to share some art, you just want to talk to people, whatever it is, you've got a skill that you want to share, jump in, man. It's super cool. And let me tell you something else that is super cool that will help you. This is my boost to help you with your live stream stuff. We have a new sponsor. Ding, 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 ding. New sponsor alert. I am so pumped about this sponsor. I can't even tell you guys. One of my favorite companies that I work with on the regular to get gear for my filmmaking. Sometimes I rent some audio stuff. Whatever it is a company called LensRentals.com. Lens Rentals. If you don't know about them, Lens Rentals is the largest online rental provider for photography, videography, and lighting equipment and accessories in the United States. They've got camera bodies and lenses in every format from every major manufacturer and all the audio, lighting, and support accessories needed to cover any kind of shoot, from a family holiday card to a commercial advertising job. All the equipment purchase is sold within 2 years, so customers are assured that their stock is always in like-new condition. They also have very killer customer service. You can call them, ask them tons of detailed questions about their equipment, about a particular camera. If you're looking to rent something, you need a light, whatever it is, and they will spend the time with you to go over the gear and get you the right thing. I have also accidentally sent back things in the packaging that it comes in, like a tripod base plate, something like that. You give them a call. I say, hey, I screwed up. This thing's coming back, and they get it back to you right away. They are based right there in Nashville, Memphis, right outside of Memphis. And good people, man. Really, really solid people. It's taken about 3 weeks to work out our situation, but here is the situation. When you use the code ROADIE15, the number 15, that's capital. It's got to be all caps, ROADIE15. You get yourself 15% off of a rental deal. And I will also tell you this, they always are running specials. They've got an incredible backlog through another site called Lens Authority, I believe it is. Lens Authority. You can see it right on their site there, of used gear. So if you are thinking about getting into podcasting, if you're thinking about getting into live streaming, if you're bored and you want to rent a camera during this time to just go out and take photographs, use the code ROADIE15, save yourself some cash money. Head over to lensrentals.com, check them out, peruse it up. They've got a lot of killer stuff. Even if you just want to add some extra gear for a while, you want to, do a sound at a wedding or something, they've got wireless mics and systems and things like that to rent. So lensrentals.com, go check it out. I really think you're going to like it. Have you taken their survey at Tor Health Research Initiative? I hope you do. torhealth.org. Get over there, take the survey. It's going to be awesome. As I mentioned about the live stream, I did talk about some books, and I want to go back to a book that I brought up back a few months ago. Actually, I guess over the summer when I had my toe surgery, I got fired from that job that I had and all kinds of shit was going down. And I just thought, you know what? This is a good time for people to get out, get this book, pick it up, have a listen, have a read, whatever it is. John Joseph's The PMA Effect. Basically, how having a positive mental attitude can help you on a daily basis through your day, through your life. Get it going. Now's the time. John Joseph, The PMA Effect. Check it out now. Folks, we are also sponsored today by AirTurn. Since 2008, AirTurn has been manufacturing wireless products such as Bluetooth pedals and multifunction remotes, supporting hundreds of thousands of customers in over 40 countries. They have a wide range of products to choose from, including the AirTurn Go Stand, one of the best portable mic stands on the market that I use on this show on a regular basis. Head over to airturn.com and use the code RODIE to save 10% off your entire order. That is RODIE over there at, airturn.com. Save yourself 10%. They got good gear over there too. You can get yourself a couple stands, head over to Lens Rentals, get yourself a camera, do what you got to do. Bingo, bango. You're live streaming and you'll love it. It's good stuff. One last thing I'm going to leave you with before we jump into today's guest. Don't forget about the Charlie Karp documentary and scholarship thing that is happening over at the Charlie Karp website. The Charlie Karp Memorial Fund is administered by Fairfield County's Community Foundation. The fund's mission is to identify and showcase a promising singer, musician, songwriter, or composer between the ages of 12 to 28 studying or residing in Connecticut. Candidates are asked to submit an electronic audition to a participating partner. The recipient will receive a $1,000 cash prize, professional career mentoring and guidance by industry professionals, a featured appearance in Westport's Levitt Pavilion for the Performing Arts Summer Concert Series. We'll see if that still stands. And professional recording of their work at Carriage House Studios and Horizon Music Studio. Wow, a lot of stuff going on. Okay, today's guest, my man, Keith Knobler. This was a great story. I appreciated everything about Keith's journey. We had a lot of parallels. The man grew up basically in the Hamptons in Long Island in New York and couldn't wait to leave the East Coast. It didn't suit him. He was ready to roll, ready to rock and roll. So he headed west. Head west, young man, which he did, out to San Francisco on a lark, on a whim. Didn't really quite know what was out there for him. He worked a few odd jobs. He was also a guitar. I think he was a guitar player. Is that what we talked about, Keith? I can't. You'll see. It unfolds here in the interview. Anyway, musician. Figured that might be the thing. I don't know. So he goes out to San Francisco, and a buddy of his says, "Hey, you know some audio stuff. Why don't you come do some sound up at the Fillmore in the poster room? They got this smaller room up there." So he starts doing that, and he starts falling in love with it. And the next thing you know, the dude 20, 30 years later is now the head audio guy at the Bill Graham Civic Auditorium, which is just insanity. He has worked at a ton of places throughout San Francisco, like Slim's, Great American Music Hall, the Maritime Hall, covered Wagon Saloon, obviously the Fillmore. He joined his local 16 IATSE in 2007. He is a good dude. We had a good chat, and I got to give a big old shout out to Mr. Jason Greenberg for tipping me off to Keith Knobler. And guys, I want you to be safe. I want you to wash your hands. And I can't wait to kick this off. Here we go with Mr. Keith Knobler.
Hit it! Call yourself a roadie. Call yourself a roadie. Call yourself a roadie.
I imagine you had a full slate of stuff coming up at the auditorium, at the Bill Graham Civic Auditorium.
We were booked up through a lot of shows in March, April. I had corporate shows earlier this month, which canceled. So lost a lot of money.
Yeah, I bet. What's the game plan for you guys right now? Is it to sort of feel things out and see how like June looks, or what are you thinking?
I am certainly hoping to be back to work in June. I think there's a Sturgill Simpson show beginning of May, and last I checked, that is still scheduled to be going on. So we'll see what happens. I'm just waiting day by day. I think everyone's just kind of taking this day by day.
What is San Francisco like right now?
San Francisco is totally shut down. Like downtown buildings are boarded up. Most businesses are shut. Some restaurants have remained open. But man, it's like the day after the apocalypse.
I bet. Do you live in the city? Where do you live?
I'm about 4 blocks from the Bill Graham Civic Auditorium, between the Bill Graham Civic Auditorium and the Fillmore.
Wow.
So I can walk to work.
It must be super weird. Have you left the house or no?
Not a lot.
No, taking a walk here and there.
I'm staying put.
Yeah. It must be so creepy, man. I mean, that city, like I'm like 2 hours out of New York, and I was just in Philly before all this went down, or as this was going down. So I can only imagine what it must be like to be in a city, look out the window, and it's a little weird.
It's definitely creepy. Yeah, it's something like we've never seen before. It's like New Year's Day, but everything's boarded up. Yeah, hopefully this will end at some point soon.
Yeah, exactly, dude. So I want to jump in with your time at the Fillmore.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got there in the 90s. Then we'll go back even further to growing up in the Hamptons. But I want to jump in at the Fillmore because when did you get there?
I got there in 2001.
2001.
So it had been opened. It'd been reopened since 1994 when I got there.
So you got out there in 94?
I got out there in 96.
Okay.
I started at the Fillmore in 2001.
Got it. Okay. I thought you'd gotten out there in the 90s and started working at the Fillmore in the 90s. What I was curious about was Bill Graham's shadow, particularly in those early 90s, right after his death there, what it was like, what the climate was like, being around those buildings.
Well, so the deal is he died in 91. Bill died in October 91. And he had wanted to get this venue reopened. It had been shuttered because of earthquake damage in 89. And it reopened in 94, which was 3 years after his death, obviously. And so I came in there several years after that. But there was still this heavy Bill Graham presence there for sure. Clear Channel, I think, had not quite taken over at that point. I think they were still under SFX, which had bought the company from Bill's kids and the company representatives. But there is a heavy Bill presence there for sure. There still is. They still hand out the apples. They still do the posters. It still says Bill Graham Presents on a lot of stuff. The photos are still there. But, it's a Live Nation venue for sure.
Yeah. Never made it to the Fillmore. Only been to the, oh my God, I just blanked on it. What's the other old theater? Oh my God.
Warfield.
Yes, the Warfield.
Yeah.
Have you mixed there?
Yeah. I have not mixed at the Warfield. I think I've worked every other venue in the city except for the Warfield. And the Independent. Never worked at the Independent.
Wow.
But I definitely have seen a lot of shows there.
Yeah.
At the Warfield Theater.
I saw my one and only Jerry band show there.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
I mean, that's what brought a lot of people out to San Francisco, whether or not they're working here or not, is the Grateful Dead. And through that, I was able to get in touch with people with ultrasound and that whole environment, which is really how I ended up here.
Yeah. So you came out there in the early 90s. So tell me about growing up in the Hamptons. Were you a musician at that point or what?
I played guitar. I wouldn't say I was a musician at all. I was definitely trying to figure out a career in life that would be something unique or I wanted to be a writer, really. I was interested in like journalism and stuff like that, and traveling and But yeah, like stagehand work or audio work was like the furthest thing on in my mind. It never occurred to me that that would be a viable way of life.
That's that's funny, man. And what were you? So you were dabbling in guitar in like high school and whatnot. And when did you start?
Yeah, in high school. And then I got the hell out of Westhampton as soon as I possibly could. I just the culture there just felt like was kind of alien to me. Had really nothing in common with what I wanted to do in life.
Yeah. And what type of writing stuff did you start to do? You started to do some journalism stuff. Did you go to school for it?
I tried to. Yeah, I moved to Arizona for a couple of years. Went to school. Took some journalism classes. Didn't really like that too much. And then moved to San Francisco.
Just on a whim, or was it to get into music?
Yeah, it was just a great place to visit. I always liked coming here. It always was like an interesting town. There's great music. It seemed like there was more employment. It was a kind of a vibrant community and whatnot. And it just seemed to be more in common with what I want to get out of life. So
yeah, a bit more free spirit.
Than polar opposite from where I grew up.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah.
I lived in LA for 15 years and spent some time up north, so I know the vibe. So really, it sounds like when you went out there, though, the audio thing, rock and roll thing, wasn't really.
I had no plans to make a living out of rock and roll or mixing bands or working for a band. I was working at the SF Weekly newspaper, which was really big at the time, where all of the concert listings were and such like that. And my buddy was working at the Fillmore. He was running this there's a poster room upstairs that's got a small, a little Meyer PA, little mixer, some, they'll book little local acts up there.
Yeah.
And he wanted out. He wanted to go to law school and get a real job. And he offered me the gig. I was
with no experience?
Yeah, it didn't. Yeah, no experience really.
That's hysterical.
But I was like, I knew enough about like plugging, a guitar and putting a microphone on someone. So I gave it a go. It was very informal, but local stuff, very small bands, and very very simple stuff.
Yeah. And who were some of you mentioned the audio crew that you worked with in that time, and you bounced around to a lot of different clubs, Slims and Great American Music Hall and all that kind of stuff. Tell me a bit about those crews and those, that landscape of people still working at that time in the 90s that you came up under.
That landscape of people totally changed the trajectory of my life. They really did. They were still like some ultrasound folks who grew up with Don Pearson and Howard Danchick, the owners of that company, and super smart people, really dedicated to their craft and to the science of audio. And they weren't just there to make a couple $100 and go out on the road. They were really dedicated to their craft. Yeah. And they kindly took me under their wing. And, they said, look, you could either go to school, get this done in probably a 2-year program, or try to, shadow us, and it'll take you twice as long, but you don't have to go to school. You'll learn the shit. Yeah, so that's what I did. And it worked out.
And who were a lot of those folks? Were they sort of leftovers from, the San Francisco music heyday, 70s, 80s, and all that, 60s, 70s, 80s, or were they a newer crop at that point?
They were both. There were still some like long hair ponytail guys from like the analog. I'm not going to go with a digital world kind of crew.
Yeah,
and I got a lot of gigs from them because I was learning. By then, I was learning digital consoles, and they didn't seem to want to do that.
Yeah.
And then there were more people like a little older than me, so they were probably like around 40 years old at the time, and had picked up right after Garcia died. There was a lot of hustle within, I think, that community to keep a lot of those peripheral companies going, particularly ultrasound.
Yep.
And so they were doing like, I think like further festivals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that people like, I don't know if you know Chris Cheruki, who just passed away, but he was like real pivotal in my career, and people who were just like really kind and helpful and willing to mentor people. And it's kind of not that way so much anymore. Everyone's got a studio in their home, and they go to expression or some vocational school to get some training, and it's just a little different these days, it seems like. So those people, a couple of them are still there. I don't know if I want to drop their names, but if you've been through the Fillmore, you know who they are.
Okay, fair enough. Give me a couple things if you can of like a few things that you learned from these guys.
I think it's important just to keep learning. There's a lot of really good, smart people in this industry. There's a lot of people who can mix real well. They're great systems engineers, but if you don't have a good temperament to get along with your crew, or to be if you're on a tour bus, especially, man, you're not going to get the gig. You're not going to get repeat gigs. You're never going to be that. I've been with this this act for such and such time. That you're never going to get that.
Yeah.
Because there's just you have to have the right temperament. You have to have the right even just basic customer skills or personal skills and whatnot. And I think that's what I got really out of them is like, keep a, I don't even know how to say it, but, just keep your head, don't lose your cool. Treat people, properly and,
keep your shit together.
Do a good job. Keep your shit together. Yeah.
Right.
I know my buddy Bobby Mack told me once, he's like, look, man, these bands, dedicated their life. They've worked for years and years and years. They expect you to be on their level.
Right.
So I get that.
Yeah. So you must have shown them something while you were working up in that little poster room, with that they wanted to reach out to you and put you under their wing, as it were.
Yeah, I think I just had ambition and persistence.
How long did it take you working in that poster room, mixing up there, before you were like, you know what? I'm not going back to the newspaper. This is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think it was like I was there for a few years. It was like 4 or 5 years.
So you still doing the paper?
I was really, careful. I did not want to jump into it and do something I wasn't qualified to do.
Yeah.
A lot of people wanted to jump on stage and start mixing monitors. And I was like, I don't know if, you tell me when you think I'm ready for that. I'm not going to tell you, I don't think, I see so many people, man, they just jump up on stage and they think, I could figure this out on the fly. It's like, man, like you're working for someone who's, first of all, they're making big money. They might be a Grammy, like a Grammy nominated or winning act. And they don't want you working on learning this on the fly, man. You could do damage to them.
Right.
You could ruin their show. People are writing about them in the newspapers and whatnot. Like this whole show was dependent upon you doing a good job, and so I never wanted to, jump the gun.
Yeah, but I imagine a small system like that. Were you just doing sort of the front of house aspect of it?
Oh yeah, no, this is real minimal. This is just a couple of UPA speakers on sticks with a Mackie mixer and whatnot.
Yeah,
and then downstairs, eventually it got to the point where I did feel confident enough to try mixing monitors, which I really like doing. And a lot of people didn't want to mix monitors, so that worked out well for me. Why'd
you like monitors over front of house?
I just like the interaction with the band. I think if you do a good job mixing monitors, that the show it's a better show. The band has a confidence on stage that you can sense it, and then they have a confidence in you. You have it helps the show go better, and I just like that. I like mixing for 6 people and not 6,000 people or 600 people. It's like it's easier to make them happy.
Yeah,
and if you do a good job, great. It's great. It's a good feeling. I liked it. I find it more rewarding myself. It's like you're never going to please the entire audience. It's impossible.
Right.
But you can please the band. So, and that's ultimately what I want to do.
Were you bouncing around to other venues in those first few years, or did you just try to stay your lane at the Fillmore and do that?
Oh, no. I was hustling everywhere. I still do. But
you got bitten, right? You were bitten.
Yeah,
you got bitten by the bug.
Well, one of the best pieces of advice I got was like, go take other gigs. Like, look, if you want to be on this stage and work this venue, go take some smaller gigs first. Try to work for a sound company or some your friends who are in a band, something like that. Don't start out on third base. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
It shouldn't work that way.
Right. Exactly. You got to pay your dues.
Yeah, you got to pay your dues. Exactly. Go work for some. It's a lot easier to make good gear work well and sound good, than it is to make old crappy gear function well and So if you can do that, you can come back to the Fillmore and work on the good stuff.
Do you remember what it was like for you mixing the first show, monitor wise, in the big room?
I totally do. It was like a 20 band metal festival. They each did like 20 minutes. They started like 2:00 in the afternoon, and they went all night. And I didn't even take a pee break. It was nuts. Wow. And it's like there wasn't a lot of changes. It wasn't like it was constantly mixing. Their metal bands are screaming. You just kind of get your vocals in the mix, and that's about all you can do.
Yeah.
But you got to see. It's intense. If you've been on stage for 20 sound, a set changes and it moves fast. And, if you can keep up with that and keep the respect of each band that's on stage and, it builds your confidence.
Absolutely. That's fucking trial by fire, man. That's nuts.
It is totally trial by fire. That's what that was the show that my buddy Bobby Mack said, like, these bands have dedicated their lives to this project that they're on. This is their job. You have to be a peer of theirs. You have to be at their level. You can't, be in second grade with their college level students up there. It doesn't work that way. So if people are not quite ready, to work for national acts or A-list artists, or there are clubs out there. Go work for some, in a punk rock bar for a few years or a few days, whatever.
Yeah.
But you don't start out on third base. That's just not how it works.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about, because I'm going to show my naivete here. Tell me a little bit about Ultrasound. Sounds like they've been around a long time. Where did they come from?
Okay, so I'm not an Ultrasound employee, so I'm not a total expert, but I do know the history of Bay Area audio fairly well. And Ultrasound was started by Don Pearson and Howard Danchik in I think it was 1980 or late 70s. And they were working for, I believe, Jefferson Starship or possibly Hot Tuna still, or both at the time. And they ended up being the sound providers for the Grateful Dead. The short story is they worked hand in hand with John Mayer with Meyer Sound Laboratories here in the Bay Area, and we're providing Meyer PAs for Grateful Dead and Bob Dylan. I think they got Dave Matthews Band and Primus, a bunch of pretty big acts. But they just seem to always hire super qualified, well-tempered people. And I've become real good friends with Howard after he sold the company. And these guys are just, they're legends. They took it to a whole nother level. They were the first ones, really interested in, time aligning PAs. Because I think that San Francisco was super important in like the history of audio. For a lot of reasons, in modern times, like John Mayer really kind of became a real well-known product designer, PA designer, pioneer in the industry and whatnot. But even prior to him, and he was working for Harry McCune, there weren't that many audio companies throughout the country. And there are people like Hal Sugin, who goes way, way back with McCune, and Lee Brankman, who actually was like at Altamont, and he's still the head of the audio at the Great American Music Hall. And like these guys, he's been there since 1972, and he still schedules the audio crew. You know, he doesn't mix a whole lot of shows there, but he's still the head audio guy there, and he's got the most amazing. You know, that is really essentially why I got into it, because there was people who were so they were so competent. They were just so good at what they were doing, and I didn't get that from. I don't know what was happening in like other areas of the country, but it was happening here. I can promise you that. Like, these people were taking it to where we are today, you know, and without people like Howard Danchick and Don Pearson and Lee Brankman to a certain extent for what he's contributed to audio crews and the amount of people that he's mentored is phenomenal. It really is an essential to this industry. You know, it's like, that's how people came up prior to these vocational schools and stuff like that. And it's like, I just can't thank them enough, and I can't give them enough credit. And I'm just so glad that I was able to come of age before they retired, you know. And I don't, you know, or they're still here, because Don Pearson's not here anymore. He died in 2006. So the fact that I can go mix a show at the Fillmore with Howard Danchick is something that I really relish. You know, it's a big deal to me. You know, it's like people. Yeah. He was mixing a show in December that I was working with him at, and it's like people come up, you know, and give him praise as like he's a band member. You know, it's like, you know, Bob Weir's. You know, Bob Weir comes up, and you know, he doesn't come to say hello to the band first. He comes to say hello to Howard first, and it's like, that shows, like, you know, I feel like nowadays people are geared kind of toward being systems engineers, or they want to be network engineers. They want to network their entire system, and it's like these guys are doing the exact opposite. They want to hone their mixes. They wanted to have a relationship with the band that is just different. You know, it was a different experience, and I'm really glad that those guys were cool and able to mentor me, and I was, you know, and they're still here to do it. So they're awesome people.
And then that means something to you, that legacy, to be part of that legacy.
Oh, 100%.
And carry that on.
100%. Yeah. I'm very, very, very aware of the legacy, especially at the Fillmore.
Yeah. Well, I think you get that, you know, we talked a little bit before about the mentoring thing, right? And as I was in LA and started to drift toward being an editor and a film editor and whatnot, it was the same sort of thing, and that's lost, right? You'd be an assistant to somebody,
yeah,
and you'd sit behind them, and you'd watch them, and you'd get whatever they needed together for them, and you learned that way. And then with the advent of Final Cut and all those kinds of things,
yeah,
people just started doing it on their own, and then so that apprenticeship was lost. A lot of it's been lost. And, when you're 23 and you're like, I can fucking edit anything, whatever. Well, maybe, but maybe you can't. Maybe there's a lot of those skills, even if it's just the people skills, right?
Oh, a lot of it is people skills indeed.
And that's something you learn by watching and sitting with someone and seeing how they handle being yelled at by an artist or by a director or by a producer. And you're like, oh, that's the right way to handle that situation. Or, wow, look how they just diffused that whole thing, you know, in the midst of a mix going horribly fucking wrong, right?
Yeah. I mean, what you just said was 100% accurate and definitely mirrors in my experiences with particularly, working with people, like I said, Howard Danchick, who's real closely associated with the Grateful Dead. So if you ever, had the misfortune of having to work with people like Mickey Hart, you would know, like, having a good temperament would require, and I definitely learned that from him.
Yeah. Do you feel fortunate you came along at that bridge between analog and digital?
I feel totally lucky.
Do you?
Because there were so many people still who just like, I'm an analog guy. You know, they weren't sold on it yet. It's like they weren't quite sure that this whole digital thing was really going to take off. You know, it's like,
right.
All right, man. You know, hey, I'll take that gig.
Yeah.
And I really made a living for myself just being this fill-in substitute sound guy for a lot of years. I would, just do fly dates for people or cover for some gig, and it was often the case that like they had a digital desk that they didn't want to, tackle or it went on for years. It was really funny in like the early mid 2000s, before every club or venue had a digital console. That's
hysterical. But I imagine you're comfortable on an analog desk.
We still have analog desks at the Fillmore. Yeah.
Do you?
Love it. And I host people who are half my age. I'm 47, but there are a lot of younger engineers come in and they say, I had no idea how to route a VCA or a mute group or patch an insert or
yeah. Like I got
I need
you.
help. Yeah.
Do you think that's unfortunate that level of
I think it's foolish. Yeah. I think it's way easier to learn signal flow and how this whole sport works on an analog system.
Yeah. Yeah.
A digital desk is, just a computer.
Right. Exactly. Oh man. Is it wild to you that, or maybe when you became the head of audio at Bill Graham Civic, that it started for you in this little poster room when you think back, and it wasn't even what you wanted to do?
It is totally wild, man. It is, I don't think I'm unique. It's like a lot of people got into like being a stagehand or getting into sound. Like this was not their goal out of high school to follow this career path. And I have a lot of colleagues who have tons of, other jobs in life before they ended up here. But it is crazy. It is totally crazy, and it was just a lot of places were just being at the right place at the right time. But yeah, it's totally crazy. The people that I met and I think of that often.
What was the jump when you went from, being a house engineer, let's say, to going on the road?
I always liked we're lucky in San Francisco. We can make a decent living here. Mm-hmm. And unless you're working with like an A-list artist or if you've got some really, sweet gig, I was not that ambitious to get road gigs. I had some like I said, some substitute gigs that I would take over the years for some friends of mine who I would just cover. But I just like, the other thing that changed here was in since about 2010, 2011, there's so much corporate audio work in the Bay Area. And it's tough to match that money. It's like, right. And I know it's not mixing bands and rocking and rolling, but it's just tough to justify going out on the road for, $1,500 a week or whatever they're paying to where they're paying corporate audio money here. So my road experience is somewhat minimal compared to I hear, like I was listening to Austin Schroeder's interview the other day and stuff. Those guys are real road champions, and I work with a lot of those guys that come through the venues nowadays, but I don't share their road dog experiences as much.
Yeah, so that wasn't really your thing, because it just came down to sort of money and comfort.
Well, I never got those gigs. It's just like I never was really that ambitious to go hustle for road gigs, and I've done a couple of tours with some bands, some smaller bands, but it's a shit lifestyle, man. I don't want to ride in a Sprinter van. I don't want to share hotel rooms. It's like the glamour's just not there for me. The money's not there for me. You know, I got a few friends who got some really good front of house audio gigs or system engineering gigs, but I'm very comfortable here. So, you know,
Yeah.
I don't want to risk it.
Right.
And I'm in a union. I'm in Local 16, IATSE Local 16, and you know, it's really my best interest to put my money there.
Right. So let's talk about that for a sec. In a time like this, how has your union, how have unions come together to help folks right now?
That's a very good question, Larry, and I think we're still waiting to see. I know the president of IATSE, Matt Loeb, is really lobbying to Congress and to get some sort of bailout for the entertainment industry. It hasn't seemed to, this big $2 trillion deal that came about the other day. I don't know that we are really targeted or going to benefit any better than anyone. The people who really get hurt the worst are the freelancers.
Sure.
You know, I can collect unemployment. You know, some unions have funds to help their members and whatnot, and that you can even borrow against your annuities if you want to, you know, ruin your future, I guess. But the people who are really going to get hurt worse are the freelancers, and I think that's the people that we need to help the most.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess that's what I was curious about was how, I mean, obviously bigger picture, it would be great if these, unions and whatnot could try to get some sort of package together overall. But I guess in the shorter term for your membership, you know, your sort of local groups around the country, like, is there stuff that they can do, you know?
Yeah. Unions don't have deep bank accounts to fund emergencies. That's not quite how they often function. They're really as lobbyists to make sure that collectively we as an industry or we as a working class people are represented. Otherwise, you know, we're the last people to get financial, you know, assistance from the federal government.
Yeah.
You know, Live Nation is likely to get money before the stagehands do.
Right. Of course.
So we shall see.
It's been kind of fascinating to me, and maybe I just pay more attention to it because I'm within it. Right. But there have been so many articles written and so many news pieces done and so much support and a lens put on entertainment, particularly the touring professional and whatnot, and the crews, to receive some sort of help from the artists, from people, from, you know, other organizations and whatnot. And I think that's really cool. I think that's great finally. But I also kind of feel like, well, things kind of like this have been happening for years and years, right? Like an artist dies and you're done. You're done with that tour. I mean, yes, you can pick up another tour, or whatever it is, you know, you get hurt and you can't go on and all this kind of stuff. And so it's kind of amazing to me in a positive way that it's taken something like this for people to go, oh yeah, there's that whole other subculture of people that make this happen that they need some fucking help. Who cares about, you know, Maroon 5? They're going to be fine. Right? Like,
yeah, you know, it's like I see all these very wealthy artists going on YouTube and Facebook and the social media performing. It's very nice of them, but some of these people have a lot of money and their crew is no longer employed, or their former crews, you know.
right.
You know, people like Paul Simon. I don't know that if they have or haven't donated to charities. I'm not saying that they haven't, but I don't know many crews that are being compensated right now for not working. You know, and maybe if you're on retainer, perhaps your boss is paying you, but no one that I know is getting paid.
Damn.
Yeah, it's pretty dire. You know, like I said, if you're not collecting unemployment, or I don't know what people are going to do. I don't know what freelancers are going to do. It's very, very bad.
Well, I was talking to a buddy a buddy about it yesterday, just in terms of like, okay, so once they sort of lift this, or once we all feel better about going back out and things kind of ramp up, it takes 2, 3, 5, 6 weeks to get the machines back in place. So there's still another, it's not like, they open the doors tomorrow and everyone just goes back to work, right? Things need to get ramped up. Schedules need to get worked out. People who lost those gigs are now carpenters or whatever the hell they're doing. They're like doing all sorts and they've got other commitments now. And to them, their heads are probably like, well, I'm out of it for the next 6 months.
That's a very real scenario. I have friends who are going that route right now. They have to like work at grocery stores or whatnot because they can't pay right here, the cost of living in places, on the coast where a lot of in LA or New York or San Francisco or even in Nashville or places, big where a lot of people in this industry live. It's very expensive to live here. So, people look at our union wages and think that we're making tons of money, and that might be the case, but our expenses match that wage. So
absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing. And certainly we don't have to pry into your personal portfolio, Keith, but to live right in the center of the city like you do is pretty awesome.
And I'll be
because
the
that
first
city
to say,
is fucking crazy, dude.
Crazy, yeah, and
and it's been crazy for a while.
It's been crazy for a while, and I'll be the first to say if I did not have rent control, and I would not be living here.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that.
Yeah. I mean,
anyone that I know that has had to either move for one reason or another, he generally ends up leaving the city.
Yeah.
It's impossible to afford to stay here.
I remember moving out to LA in 94 and from New York, from the city, and it was so much more affordable. You could get by, you could stretch. I was a PA at that point. You could stretch your, whatever it was, $125 a day. If you work twice a week or something, you could stretch that a lot farther. But I remember going up to visit friends in San Francisco and be like, holy shit, man. It's even in the 90s, it was expensive.
Yeah. I feel like I've totally lost track of what things really cost. It's like, you could be in places like Tokyo, Japan, and you're like, well, that seems really affordable. This glass of orange juice is only $6 because it's like $9 where I live. Is that really how much a glass of orange juice really does cost? Because I don't know. It's like,
right.
You totally lose track of reality. And I'm interested to see, like, after this, hopefully our lives resume in the near future. But I'm willing to, curious to see how that plays out, because I feel like things got really inflated. Things got really crazy. It was definitely there was no doubt that we were living in a bubble. So
absolutely, man. Have you heard any stories or anything from any crew members of bands, bigger bands I'm talking about, who had big tours planned, who, let's say, just pulled together their sort of immediate crew, guitar techs, front of house, all that, people that were getting ready to go, who said, we're going to take care of you for a month or two. Have you heard any of that kind of stuff or no?
Negative.
Nothing.
No. Yeah, and even taking it past that, like, was it this past? Yeah, it was 2019. Like the Woodstock Festival that canceled that was supposed to happen. Or like whatnot. A lot of those headliner bands got paid.
Right.
I'm not going to mention, but a buddy of mine, very good friend of mine, works for one of those bands, and they were paid a lot of money.
Yes.
I mean, could be like millions of dollar money.
Yeah.
And he didn't get paid.
Right.
They didn't pay him anything.
That's what I'm talking about, right? That this is not the first time, obviously, that something like this has decimated people's path. Because if you lock in, especially in that type of situation, right? If you lock into like, okay, I'm going to do that festival or this big 6-month tour, and 3 weeks before you're supposed to go out, something happens. Well, you're out of a job for at least 2 months, probably, if not more. Because you've said no to everybody else, and now it's summer and everything else is booked, right?
Totally. Yeah.
What he said.
Yeah, it's very troubling, and I would like to see something become of this? Hopefully these artists who can afford to dig deep into their pockets to pay their crew, their former crew, people who worked for them 5 years ago, however they can figure out to generate some sort of money for these road guys. I feel I have a lot of empathy for these people who hustle tour to tour because I don't share that lifestyle with a lot of these people who are probably listening in this podcast, but it's a hustle, man. It's like, unless you're working with a management company that's going to say, hey, once this tour is over, I'm going to put you on the next one. It's like, there are some cherry gigs like that, but I don't know how these people are going to survive this one.
Yeah, man. Crazy. Talk to me about your role, and maybe now is a time to do some of this stuff, but tell me about, you were mentored quite a bit as you came up. Do you do a lot of stuff to mentor younger guys and gals?
I do, in fact. And my role now, I kind of, this role at the Bill Graham Civic Auditorium kind of fell into my lap about 5 years ago. All right. I was, like I said, I was kind of being the substitute sound guy. I'd be called into clubs or theaters or even some fly dates or whatever. But this venue right down the road from where I live is the Bill Graham Civic Auditorium, and Another Planet Entertainment came in there in 2007, and they committed to really putting a lot of money and promotion into shows there, and it hadn't been too busy, so a lot of my coworkers were real reluctant to commit to this head audio position. They didn't want to commit to some Wednesday hip hop show and lose 6 days worth of work because they want this midday gig. And I kind of felt it was worth it. I think there was a lot of work coming in the future, and the EDM industry really has taken off in this area, in that venue in particular. It's become a one of the biggest EDM venues in the country right now. And there's a lot of younger kids. They'll send the Local 16, our union will send a lot of less experienced people there. It's a rock show. It's not a fancy corporate event. It's not a high profile, charity gig. So they'll send them, to push road cases and help wrap cables and stuff. So I dig it. I'm real meticulous about teaching stagehands about, wrap your cables right, man. Send this front of house snake back better than the way it came. Let them know that we know what we're doing.
Yeah,
you take some pride in your gig. So it's a lot of fun. I dig it.
Tell me more about your sort of day-to-day responsibilities at a venue like that as a head audio guy for an 8,900 seat venue. What does that mean?
It means, well, it changes day to day, to gig to gig. But we have an L Acoustics K2 rig that's rather, kind of been permanently housed there in the past 2 years, which is provided by Sound on Stage, local audio company. And we get a lot of different kind of events there, from corporate gigs to rock shows and a lot of EDM shows on the weekends. And, our days start at 8 a.m. with big, 3, 4, 5, 10 truck load-ins, 4 or 5 hour load-ins. And we get their show built, and I'm there all day, all night. And basically I'm running a crew at that point. The bands are bringing in their techs. The sound company's got a systems tech that they bring in every show. So, I'm making sure that our local crew interfaces with the road crew in a hospitable way, Well,
that was sort of my next question.
Do a good job.
Yeah, that was sort of my next question is that, I've talked to folks that are primarily house engineers, and just that interaction, you've got a crew that's coming in, maybe this is their last night of 5 or whatever the hell it is, right? And they're burnt, they're a little toasty. What do you, in that hospitable thing, what do you strive to provide for them?
Man, it's just essential. Dawn Holiday, who's a an awesome woman and a promoter who worked and ran Slim's club here for a lot of years. She said, look, and that was a smaller club, like a 500 cap room, but she's like, look, all the bands really want is good food and good sound and good, customer service. After that, like, they don't really know what the fuck is happening everywhere else in the venue.
Right.
And I was related to that. It's like, if you ever spend a day driving in a van or overnight, shitty night sleep in a tour bus, and you're waking up and you got to deal with this incompetent local crew that's insisting on touching your gear and doing the work that you want to do, and they're insisting that they have to do it. And, it's like, get out of the way, man. Like, these guys come in, this is their, we are there to help them. We are not there to ruin their day. We're not there to flex our muscles and show how much skills we have and tell our stories of how we do our jobs better than they do, where they come from. It's like, it's just so horrible. I hear these stories, particularly union stories. People like to badmouth unions.
Right.
And, you just hear these horrible stories of when we were in such and such town, and, they wouldn't let us do that. And I catch people doing it all the time. It's like they want to be ambitious. They think they're doing the right thing, and you just have to be able to read people. Look, if there's a systems tech or a front of house person, and they want to, set up their monitor or whatever, their monitor guy, they want to set up their cue edges in a particular way, like, let them move their gear, like, get out of the way. If they ask for help them. Right. And I think that was really important. And like I said earlier, it's like, there's a lot of talented people in this industry. People have got skills. They've got tons of knowledge. They're great networking engineers. But man, if you can't get along with road crews and production people, you're going to fail. Yeah. No one is going to want to work with you.
Yeah, you're going to be done.
I'm not going to want to work with you.
Right.
I know that.
How many guys and gals do you have working under you at any given time? Does it totally fluctuate?
It depends. Usually about 8. Audio crew usually about 8. Then we can fly both sides of the PA at the same time. We can build front of house. We can build monitor world. We can run Snake. We can knock it out in a timely way. Yeah, I think that's important. It's crews like it when you take initiative. They don't have to worry about micromanagement. They ask you to get their front of house Snake run correct direction. The first time and stuff like
right,
that.
Right. Aside from major pandemic, do you ever get any time off?
I try to take every January and July off, because it's pretty dead after New Year's Eve for the most part. Traditionally, it's been, and in the last couple of years, it's been a little bit busier. But I try to take every January and July off. My wife and I get the hell out of the country, travel.
So that's it. You work 7 days a week. Other than that,
I work a lot. I don't know if I wouldn't say 7 days a week, but February, March, April, May, and June, I'm probably putting in 50, 60 hours a week.
Wow.
My days are like 16, 18-hour days off. And so
sure.
you do 3 or 4 of those a week, and it adds up pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
I would much rather work a lot and then take some time off. And I could not imagine, just having some job that was the same every day and then taking a 2-week vacation every year.
Yeah. When you go away for those extended periods, like a month or whatever, do you try to get as far away from music and whatnot as possible? Or do you guys go out and see music and do the...
as the older I get, the less interested I am in like chasing rock and roll shows and and anything like that. We like going like to tour theaters and stuff like that. When we're in Europe, we'll go tour like opera houses and stuff like that. I took a tour of the Royal Albert Hall. We were in London last year, and that was really cool. But it's like my interest in going to see a band or a show are pretty minimal these days.
Yeah, I bet.
I'd rather you pay me than me pay you. I feel like this is payback now. I get paid
on something like the Royal Albert Hall tour. Was that like a public thing that you did, or was like you threw a contact? You're like, hey, dude, I'm going to be in town. Can you walk us around?
They offer tours. Yeah, if you reach out to them, they offer killer backstage tours. They take you throughout the venue, into the Queen's box, and they could take you backstage and on. It's a cool tour.
That's
killer
awesome.
venue.
I bet.
Yeah, really cool venue.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's the allegedly the busiest venue of its kind in the world. They do shows like almost every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
I think maybe the Garden might be second, perhaps something like that.
Damn. But you guys sound like you're hopping all the time.
We, like I said, we are crazy busy. I'd say like from February through June, whether or not that's a high school graduation, a hip hop show, or David Byrne, whatever it might be, we're pretty busy during that season. And then July, it just totally drops off like to the deep end.
Huh.
We regroup. I do Outside Lands Festival every year in Golden Gate Park. And that's kind of when I return from my summer trip. That's kind of my first gig back. And that's a great festival. Really, nice. It's turned into probably one of the better festivals in the country. Yeah,
I've never been out for that one. I want to get out for that one at some point. They always have great lineups, man.
Yeah, Another Planet. They do a really good job. They're a thoughtful production company. They're just always trying to do something better and a little. They're trying to do the right thing in the concert industry. That's for sure.
Yeah.
They had a cool comedy festival the past few years called Cluster Fest, which I don't know if it's returning this year, but it was the first of its kind. No one's really doing giant comedy festivals where some comic who generally is in a 200 cap small club is now at an 8,000 room Bill Graham Civic Auditorium. But it was killer. It was really cool.
I bet it was awesome. So wait, were you there with Obama coming through and the Dalai Lama and all that?
No, that was a little bit. The Dalai Lama was definitely before me, but I was there for Obama and definitely Hillary Clinton. I was in a pretty small room with Hillary and about, I'd say, 20 of the Bay Area's movers and shakers.
Wow.
Real close before the election. Like she was high-fiving everyone. She was claiming victory.
Wow.
And I could sense, like, they eventually asked me to, they didn't want me in the room anymore, but right. I was mixing the audio, and before I left, they were really adamant, like, what else is going to come out? Like, what else is there that we don't know about? It was really awkward. It was a strange moment.
Oh, man.
But it left this weird vibe, like, man, she's just, not to get political, but it was a strange moment.
Yeah, I bet. I can imagine. How? What's the prep for something like that, as opposed to like a concert?
I'll tell you, not to divert, but we've done a bunch of like mayoral, presidential events where the Secret Service comes in and they do their thing. But the biggest security in a far more presidential kind of response to security, I did a tool show at the Bill Graham Civic a few years ago. And that was far more presidential than any political person I've ever seen security provided for. Like they were dropping those little glow sticks around and stuff by to take like a permanently lit path in case they had a complete power failure and stuff like that.
This is the band Tool?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was an odd moment.
Interesting.
So that was far more, that was far more presidential than Hillary or Obama.
Yeah. It must be a bit of a thrill though to have the Secret Service cruising around, and they got to probably grill you with a bunch of questions of this and that. And
they send you something that's a little like an NDA. They send you prior to the event, making sure they do some sort of background check. It's pretty.
Yeah.
We've high profile. If you ever done a gig with like a high profile CEO, it's pretty much the same thing. They come with the same style of security.
Right.
The dogs come through, and the guys with the suits and the earpieces come through, and such like that. But I'd never seen anyone really push it to the extent where the guys from Tool really were. They were very. It was not that long after the the shooting in Paris, and so it's.
I was going to
in their
say, if you
defense,
said a few years ago, it was probably around that sort of.
Yeah, it was shortly after that, and they really took it to the next level. After that, I'd never seen a band that invested in their security, which perhaps they need. I don't know. I'm not a Tool fan, but apparently they're concerned for their fans or their safety of their fans.
Yeah, is that something? Those events and unfortunately the prevalence of those sorts of things, is that something that has affected the way you approach the venue?
You know, I don't. I try never to turn my back on the audience when I'm on a stage now, and I'm very thoughtful of that. Where I don't think I ever was before. You know, when I'm doing a set change or something like that, I've always just kind of had my head down, and I've often was unplugging monitor wedges or something, or a downstage subsnake, and you turn your back. And I try never to turn my back on the crowd ever again. I just was in the back of my head. It's just a weird time. I don't know if it seems to have died down, the vibe, at least among bands. It's definitely in the back of my head. You should always be conscious of where the crowd is, no matter what, and even if you're not fearful of a shooting, I think it's good to know what's going on and if there's a large audience near you, a lot of people near you. But yeah, it's definitely in the back of my head for sure.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, we've got metal detectors now that we didn't use to. Everyone that comes through the venues that I work are go through metal detectors or pat it down and stuff like that. Yeah. There's uniformed police both at the Fillmore, outside the Fillmore, and at the Bill Graham Civic. So it's and that all comes at the cost of the venues. Like, people think that the police are out there, donating their services to these places, but venues pay for that. That costs money. Yeah. So it's a strange time.
It is a strange time, man. All around. Well, Keith, dude, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day, your busy quarantine day, to chat with me, man. You've had a pretty cool time there in San Francisco, and I hope you come out of this the other end and you're back at it.
Thanks so much, Larry. Yeah, I hope we are too. This city, hopefully, we were one of the first to kind of shut down, I think, in response to this, and hopefully we will be one of the first to reopen. I don't know how that's going to happen, but taking it day by day.
I feel like for you guys, it's already been like 3 weeks or something, right?
It has. My last gig was the 28th of February, and everything else after that canceled. So I haven't worked since the end of February.
When did so at that point, the venue just shut down because there's nothing going on in there?
Yeah, well, we had showed everything canceled. I had a corporate gig that I was supposed to work in San Jose. That was like a Facebook, one of Facebook's companies that does an annual big showcase event in San Jose that was going to be there the first week in March. That event canceled 48 hours prior to our load in. And that was the start of it. So that happened. That was supposed to load in, I think, on the 1st of March. And I got the cancellation of that on the 26th of February. So that's probably that's really when it started.
Wow. Well, again, dude, I hope things, get back to normal for you guys out there soon enough. And I appreciate you doing this, dude.
Thanks, Larry. I love your show. So thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Keith, my man, you continue to be safe, buddy. All right? Wash those hands. Take care of yourself. Shelter in place. Folks, we'll see you next week for episode 166. My guest is Matt Boudreau, producer, mixer, and host of the highly successful podcast Working Class Audio. During the week, you can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify, all as Roadie Free Radio. Check out the website, roadiefreeradio.com. Send me a note because I want to hear from you. That's info@roadiefreeradio.com. And my friends, in the meantime, please, for God's sakes, wash those hands and y'all be safe out there. No roadies, no rock and roll.